He hadn't spoken in 3 years. Not one word. Not even to the father who moved mountains trying to reach him. But the moment a black maid walked through that door carrying a tray of soup, the boy looked up, dropped his toy, and whispered one word that cracked the entire room in half. Mama. The park estate didn't feel like a home. It felt like a museum. Cold marble, high ceilings, silence so thick you could choke on it. Everything was expensive. Everything was perfect. And nothing breathed. Minwook Park stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his study, whiskey untouched on the desk behind him. 42 floors below, Seoul's underworld moved without him. For now. His underbosses could manage one night. Tonight, he was watching his son through the hallway camera feed on his phone. 3-year-old June sat in the middle of the playroom floor, surrounded by toys he never touched, staring at a wall. He hadn't spoken since the fire. Doctors called it trauma-induced selective mutism. Minwook called it his punishment. He pressed his thumb against the phone screen like he could reach through it. Like proximity on a screen could replace the father he didn't know how to be. 14 floors below and 3 zip codes away, Doris Ames was stuffing her nursing uniform into a cracked laundry machine and calculating whether she had enough for both the electricity bill and her mother's insulin. She didn't. She pulled out her phone and stared at the job listing she'd been avoiding all week. Live-in domestic caretaker, immediate start, premium pay, no questions about the employer. That last line should have made her close the app. Instead, she pressed apply. She needed the money. Her mother needed her. That was the only math that mattered. Neither of them knew that by tomorrow morning, one small boy's silence was about to detonate both their lives. Before we go further, do you think Doris should know something is off about this job from the start? Or should she walk in completely blind? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The park estate swallowed Doris whole. A black SUV had collected her at dawn. No small talk from the driver. Just iron gates, a long driveway lined with stone lanterns, and a house that looked like it was built to intimidate God himself. A stern housekeeper named Mrs. Cho handed her a uniform, a schedule, and one rule spoken like a verdict. You do not speak to Mr. Park unless spoken to. You do not ask about the child's condition. You serve, you clean, you leave when told. Doris nodded. She'd survived worse orientations. Her first assignment was simple. Bring lunch to the boys' room. She balanced the tray, knocked twice, and pushed the door open. The playroom was enormous and devastating. Every toy imaginable arranged in perfect, untouched rows. The sunlight cut through the curtains in pale strips. And in the center of it all, little June sat cross-legged on the floor, holding a worn fabric rabbit missing one eye. He didn't look up. Doris set the tray down quietly and crouched to his level, the way she did with her neighbor's kids, unhurried, unbothered, like she had all the time in the world. "Hey, little man," she said softly. "I brought you some soup. You don't have to eat it. Just know it's there." June's fingers tightened around the rabbit. She started to stand. That's when it happened. The boy's head lifted slowly. His dark eyes, too heavy for a 3-year-old, found her face. He studied her the way children study something they recognize from a dream. His small lips parted. "Mama." The word fell like a stone into still water. Doris's breath left her body completely. Behind her, she heard the tray rattle. Mrs. Cho stood frozen in the doorway, face ash white, the phone already rising to her ear. Minwook was in his car before Mrs. Cho finished the sentence. He took the stairs, didn't wait for the elevator. When he pushed open the playroom door, Doris was still kneeling on the floor, heart hammering, hands raised slightly like she was trying to prove she hadn't touched anything. June had crawled into her lap. Just like that. No invitation, no hesitation. Like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Minwook's jaw turned to stone. "Get up." His voice was quiet. That was worse than shouting. Doris rose carefully, keeping her movement slow so June wouldn't startle. The boy whimpered when she shifted and clutched her uniform with both fists. Sir, I didn't do anything. I heard what he said. Minwook's eyes were obsidian, unreadable. Who sent you? Doris blinked. The agency? Bright Hands Domestic? Which agency is a cover for the Italians? The Triad? He stepped closer. Home? Because my son has not spoken in 3 years. Not to his doctors, not to me. And 30 minutes after you walked through that door? He's a child. Doris's voice came out steadier than she felt. Children aren't conspiracies. Something flickered across Minwook's face. Not anger, something raw. June tugged her uniform again, looking up at her with those devastating eyes. Minwook watched his son's face. Open, trusting. Alive in a way it hadn't been in 3 years, and felt something violent move through his chest. He turned away. You don't leave this estate, he said to the window, until I find out exactly who you are. Doris looked at the little boy holding her hand and made a decision that defied every survival instinct she owned. Fine, she said quietly. I'm not going anywhere. By nightfall, Minwook's entire intelligence network had Doris Ames under a microscope. 27 years old. Born in Atlanta. Mother chronically ill. No criminal record, no known affiliations. 3 abandoned nursing school semesters. Each one interrupted by a financial crisis. Currently $4,000 behind on rent. Nobody. By every measurable standard, nobody. He sat across from her in his study, the file open between them like an accusation. Nursing school, he said. 3 times. She didn't flinch. Life kept having other opinions. Your mother. She has nobody else. Minwook closed the file. He studied her. She met his gaze without performing bravery, just held it, steady and tired and real. June won't sleep, he said finally. He's been screaming for 40 minutes. Mrs. Cho can't calm him. My doctor can't calm him. A pause that cost him something. He's asking for you. Doris said nothing, just stood. She sat with June for 2 hours, sang low, shapeless songs, rubbed his back until his breathing evened. Minwook stood outside the cracked door the entire time, listening to his son sleep peacefully for the first time in 3 years. When Doris finally stepped into the hallway, she nearly walked into his chest. They stood inches apart in the dim corridor. Why does he respond to you? Minwook's voice was stripped of its armor. Just a father. Just a question. I don't know, she said honestly. He searched her face for a lie and found none. You'll stay, he said. I'll double whatever the agency quoted. I have conditions. His eyebrow lifted. Boss, I call my mother every morning. I have Sundays off and... She held his gaze. Nobody points a gun at me again. The ghost of something crossed his lips. Not quite a smile. Agreed. Something about the way Minwook stood outside that door tells me this man is feeling things he doesn't have words for yet. What do you think he's really afraid of? Losing control or finally feeling something again? Comment below. And if this story already has you hooked, I hit that subscribe button so you never miss what comes next. 3 weeks dissolved into a strange, fragile routine. Doris learned the estate's rhythms. June's favorite foods, plain rice, anything orange-colored, warm milk with honey. His worst hours, 3 a.m., always 3 a.m. when the nightmares came. She learned to be there before he fully woke. What she didn't expect was learning Minwook. It happened on a Wednesday. She was retrieving June's rabbit from the laundry room when she found the box. Unlabeled, shoved behind the water heater like someone had tried to bury it. Inside, a woman's photograph. Korean, beautiful. Laughing at whoever held the camera. Beside it, a hospital bracelet. And beneath that, a surrogacy contract, dated 4 years ago, stamped with a clinic in Chicago. A clinic Doris knew. Her hands went cold. She'd been 23 and desperate when she'd signed her own contract with that same clinic. They'd promised $10,000 to carry an embryo to term. She'd woken up from the procedure groggy and heartbroken as the doctor told her the baby hadn't survived. She'd grieved alone, paid her mother's bills, never looked back. Now she stared at the photograph of a woman who shared June's exact eyes. That was his mother. She spun. Minwook stood in the doorway, his face unreadable but his hands. His hands were gripping the doorframe. She died in a fire 8 months after June was born, he said. She never told me she couldn't carry. Never told me about the surrogate. His voice was gravel. I found the contract after the funeral. Doris's throat closed. The clinic, she whispered. Which clinic? He said the name. The box slipped from her fingers. Minwook called in a private geneticist that same night. Neither of them slept. They sat on opposite ends of the kitchen island, June asleep upstairs, the house holding its breath around them. Doris wrapped both hands around a mug of tea that had gone cold an hour ago. If the test confirms it, she said carefully, what happens? I don't know yet. He was honest. She'd give him that. I'm not trying to take him. Her voice cracked slightly on the edges. I didn't even know he existed until 3 weeks ago. I know. I grieved him. She set the mug down. I grieved a baby I thought I lost. I named her. I wrote her a letter I never sent. She stopped herself. I should not have said that. No. Minwook's voice was quiet. Don't stop. She looked at him. The carefully constructed danger of him. The tattoos, the empire, the silence that could end careers. All of it had developed cracks she could see straight through. You talk to him, she said. Every night before bed, you stand at his door and say the same thing. Papa's here. You're safe. But you never go in. Minwook said nothing. You're afraid he'll reject you. Something moved across his face like weather. He lost his mother because of my world, he said finally. Everything he's afraid of, I built it. Doris slid her mug aside and looked at him plainly. Then stop building it and start showing up. For a long moment, the kitchen was completely still. Then Minwook stood, walked upstairs, and for the first time in 3 years, he went in. The DNA results arrived on a Friday morning. Maternal match, Doris Ames, 99.97%. Minwook read the report alone first. By the time Doris came downstairs, something in him had reorganized itself into something cold. She saw it immediately. Minwook. My underboss came to me last night. He set the report on the island without looking at her. He says you were placed here, that the agency you came through has ties to the Kim faction, my enemies. Doris stared at him. That's not true. He has photographs of you entering a building owned by Kim's front company. I applied for 3 jobs that week. I don't know who owns those buildings. Convenient. The word landed like a slap. Something ignited behind her eyes. You want to believe that? It's easier than the truth sitting right in front of you. You are a biological stranger who appeared in my house, bonded immediately with my traumatized son, and are now connected to my enemies. I am his mother. Her voice broke and held at the same time. That report says so. That boy says so every single morning when he runs to me, before his eyes are fully open. And you... She stepped closer. You were finally letting yourself feel something that wasn't fear, and now you're punishing both of us for it. Minwook's face was stone. You should leave by morning, he said. She searched his face for the man who'd walked into June's room that night, and he'd buried him. She picked up the DNA report, folded it twice, and placed it in his hand. When you're done being a coward, she said quietly, you know where to find me. She walked out. Upstairs, June called for her. Minwook closed his eyes. She'd been gone 4 days when Minwook found the letter. It was tucked inside June's rabbit, slipped through the old seam in the back. Doris must have placed it there the morning she left, knowing the boy would eventually bring it to him. The handwriting was unhurried. Honest. I wrote my baby a letter once when I thought she was gone. I never thought I'd have to write another one. But I'm writing this to the man who's raising her. Because yes, I know now. I always knew something lived in him that came from me. That laugh. That way he tilts his head when he's deciding whether to trust someone. I'm not your enemy. I'm not a weapon someone pointed at your family. I'm a woman who lost something and found it again in the last place I expected. And then found something else I didn't know I was missing. You're afraid your world will destroy what you love. So you destroy it first. I understand that. But June doesn't. He just knows you didn't come back. Show up, Minwook, not for me. For him. And when you've done that, if there's anything left in you that's brave enough, you know where I'll be. Minwook read it 3 times. Then he walked into June's room and sat on the edge of the bed. The boy was awake, holding the rabbit, watching him with those eyes that held too much. Papa, June said softly. Minwook's throat worked. I'm here, he said. And this time, he stayed. In the morning, he made 2 calls. The first dismantled his underboss's manufactured evidence in 40 minutes. The second was to a number in Atlanta. It rang twice. Doris? A pause. I'm listening, she said. That letter absolutely wrecked me. What was the line that hit you hardest? Tell me in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button right now because the finale is something you do not want to miss. She didn't come back for him. She came back for June. That's what she told herself on the drive through those iron gates, watching the stone lanterns blur past the window, like a memory she hadn't made yet. Minwook was waiting at the door, not surrounded by guards, not armored in his usual silence. Just standing there, hands at his sides, in a simple dark sweater, looking like a man who had finally put something heavy down. June exploded through the door before anyone spoke. Mama! He hit her at full speed, arms around her neck, face buried in her shoulder. Doris held him so tightly her arms shook, pressed her lips to his curls, closed her eyes. When she looked up, Minwook was watching them, the way he'd watched from doorways for weeks, except now he wasn't hiding. I fired him, he said. My underboss. I found the real source. A pause. It was never you. I know it wasn't. I know you know. Something raw crossed his face. I'm sorry, Doris. She studied him for a long moment. June called you Papa, she said. 4 days ago, the night I left, Mrs. Cho told me. He nodded slowly. He's been saying it every day since. Good. She set June down, keeping his hand in hers, and looked at Minwook plainly. That's where we start. With him. Everything else? She let the sentence breathe. We figure out slowly. He stepped forward, stopping just close enough that June could reach both their hands simultaneously, which the boy promptly did, threading their fingers together with the absolute authority of a child who has decided something is true. Minwook looked down at their joined hands, then at her. Slowly, he agreed. The word carried everything. That evening, for the first time, they ate dinner together at the long table that had always felt too large. June sat between them, narrating everything on his plate with the enthusiasm of a child rediscovering his own voice. Minwook caught Doris's eye over the boy's head, and something passed between them. Quiet, unhurried, and more honest than anything his empire had ever built. Later, after June was asleep, they sat in the kitchen. Same island, same late hour. But the silence between them had changed completely. It wasn't guarded anymore. It was the beginning of something. The letter, Minwook said quietly. Doris looked at her tea. You said you found something else you didn't know you were missing. She looked up. He held her gaze. No armor, no coldness. Just a man asking a real question. She let herself answer it. Honestly. with her eyes. He reached across the island and covered her hand with his. Neither of them moved away. Outside, Seoul glittered 40 floors below, indifferent and relentless. But inside, in the warm light of an ordinary kitchen, something the underworld couldn't broker and no enemy could manufacture was quietly, finally beginning. A family forged not from blood alone, but from choice. And there it is. A little boy's one word rewrote 3 lives forever. Which moment in this story broke you open the most? Was it the letter, the DNA results, or that final dinner scene? I genuinely want to know. Drop it in the comments. And if this story found you at the right moment, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances right now. Subscribe for more stories that hit different, because we are just getting started.